Hello learners, and a very warm welcome to this session. I am delighted to have you here. Through this lecture, my goal is not just to share knowledge, but also to inspire curiosity, encourage critical thinking, and help you connect what you learn to real life situations. Treat each lecture not just a lesson, but as an opportunity to grow and expand your perspective. In this lecture, we'll be exploring a fascinating area of psychology, the study of individual differences. Before we proceed, let me give you a clear overview of what you will be able to learn by the end of this module. By the end of this module, you will be able to understand the concept of individual differences, nature and importance of individual differences, significance of individual differences, how individual differences originate, measurement of individual differences. The concept of individual differences forms the very foundation of psychology. It focuses on what makes each of us unique while also recognizing the similarities that connect us as human beings. Whenever psychology is discussed, this theme naturally arises how people think, feel, and behave in distinctive ways. This idea is not new. Over 2000 years ago, the philosopher Plato observed that no two individuals are ever alike. Today, psychologists continue to explore these differences, acknowledging that they are shaped by both heredity and environmental influences. The branch of psychology dedicated to this field is known as differential psychology. As Thomas Kammerer-Premuzic explains, the goal of studying individual differences is to identify the traits that shape our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, and to use this knowledge to explain why people act in the ways they do. For teachers and educationists, this understanding is vital. By respecting and accommodating differences, they can design learning experiences that allow every child to thrive. When ignored, these differences may lead to exclusion, frustration, or a sense of being misunderstood. At its core, the study of individual differences reminds us that every learner is unique, and this uniqueness is something to be valued rather than overlooked. Human beings vary in countless ways, sometimes in pattern we can explain, and at other times in ways that appear random. For instance, individuals may react differently to the same situation or even behave inconsistently across different moments. Still, many differences follow predictable trends. Some individuals display stronger obedience to authority, others show more persistent anxiety, faster word processing, or deeper biases. Psychologists studying individual differences focus on two major questions. What are the traits in which people differ? Traits like intelligence, personality, motivation, or anxiety. Why do these differences exist? Are they shaped by genetics, childhood experiences, family background, or biological factors such as brain structure and nervous system activity? Defining individual differences, there is ongoing debate on how to conceptualize these traits. Some psychologists argue that personality traits are relatively stable, while others claim that human behavior is determined more by context and environment. Such perspectives require a careful evaluation and scientific evidence. Explaining their origins, why do some students consistently excel academically while others struggle? Why are some naturally outgoing while others are reserved? Why do mood shifts occur so sharply in some individuals? And why is money a strong motivator for certain people but not for others? Answering these questions requires valid and reliable methods of measurement to ensure that traits are not only identified but also accurately assessed. Individual differences are best seen as existing along a continuum rather than in fixed categories. Take intelligence as an example. It cannot be reduced to intelligent versus not intelligent. Instead, intelligence exists in varying degrees. When measured across a population, it typically follows a normal distribution curve, with most people clustering around the average and fewer at the extreme ends. The study of individual differences has a long history rooted in the work of pioneers such as Valmont, James McCain, Cattell, Emil Kraepelin, Joseph Jastrow, and Hermann Ebbinghaus. Their contribution laid the groundwork for systematic approach to understanding human variation. Later psychologist Deco suggested that differential psychology mainly examines group variations. However, closer study reveals that differences are evident not only between groups but also within them. Whether these differences involve intelligence, attitude, motivation, interests, or physical abilities, they highlight the uniqueness of every individual. As Skinner emphasized, individual differences include every measurable aspect of personality. Similarly, James Drever defined them as variations from the group average in mental or physical traits among individuals. Thus, study of individual differences is central to psychology because it helps us to understand human diversity in thought, feeling, and behavior. It reminds us that each person carries a distinctive pattern of traits and abilities. For educators, psychologists, and professionals, this understanding is essential in building inclusive, effective, and supportive environments. Having developed a clear understanding of the concept of individual differences, let us move forward to explore our next topic, which builds directly on this foundation. That is, the nature of individual difference. Human beings vary greatly, and these variations arise from multiple influences such as genetics, environment, society, and culture. Collectively, these factors shape a child's growth, determining not only physical attributes but also intellectual capacities, social behaviors, and personality development. It is essential to recognize that individual differences are multidimensional and cannot be attributed to a single cause. Rather, they emerge through the complex interaction of several factors. For example, academic achievement is not determined solely by intelligence. It is equally influenced by motivation, personality, family support, and access to educational resources. Thus, human variation must always be understood as the outcome of interrelated elements. A deeper understanding of these differences enables us to interpret human behavior with greater clarity. Since individuals are guided by diverse cultural practices, beliefs, and traditions, their perspectives and reactions to life situations also vary. These distinctions allow us to connect specific behavioral patterns with particular personality traits. Among the many sources of variation, heredity plays a crucial role. Genetic factors influence characteristics such as height, weight, complexion, intelligence, memory, creativity, reasoning, and even susceptibility to health conditions. While heredity provides the biological foundation, environmental experiences and social contexts refine and shape these characteristics throughout life. To examine these variations systematically, psychologists employ several methods. Common approaches include psychological tests which assess mental and emotional abilities, achievement tests designed to evaluate academic knowledge and performance, observation which offers valuable insights into how individuals behave and adapt within different environments. It is also important to note that differences are not only observed between individuals but may also occur within the same individual. These are known as intra-individual differences. For instance, a person may appear enthusiastic and cheerful on one day but withdrawn or distressed on another. Similarly, aspects of personality may change over time as individuals mature and gain new experiences. When human behavior is viewed on a larger scale, it becomes evident that most people fall within an average range, while only a small minority occupy the extremes. This distribution is best illustrated by the normal curve. where the majority cluster around the mean with fewer individuals at the higher and lower ends. Thus, individual differences are natural, universal, and inevitable. Acknowledging and respecting these differences is essential for building inclusive educational practices and a more equitable society. By valuing human diversity, we not only support personal growth but also strengthen the collective progress of communities. Importance of individual differences. Now, moving to the importance of individual differences, why it is essential to look at people as unique individuals rather than treating everyone as the same. Let me begin with a simple example. Imagine a researcher studying how many calories people burn at rest. After collecting data from men, women, and children, the researcher calculates an average and then concludes that everyone should consume 1900 calories a day. Now, while this may suit a few individuals, it certainly won't apply to everyone. Why? Because factors such as age, sex, body size, and activity level play a huge role in determining calorie needs. By relying only on average, the researcher ignores real differences and the recommendation becomes misleading, even harmful for many people. This example shows us why paying attention to individual differences is so important. In psychology, this field examines traits like intelligence, personality, motivation, values, confidence, and self concept, all of which help us explain why people think, feel, and behave in unique ways. Of course, psychology often aims to make general claims about human behavior, for instance, how most people respond in a certain situation. These analyzations can be useful, but they are also limiting. They may overlook cultural variations and minority perspectives. In fact, much of psychology's history has reflected mainly Western, white experiences, leaving out many other voices. Some important studies have challenged this imbalance. For example, in 1982, Stephen Jay Gould criticized how IQ tests were misused to support false and racist claims about intelligence differences among races. Similarly, a 1970 study on African American children revealed change in how they viewed their own identity compared with earlier generations. Research like this is vital. It reminds us to include diverse perspectives that have too often been ignored. Another key issue is the idea of what we call abnormal behavior. At first glance, the term seems simple, but in reality, it is highly complex. What is considered normal or abnormal depends on cultural background, personal beliefs, and even sexual identity. Before labeling someone as different or abnormal, it is necessary to consider the wider social and cultural context. Recognizing individual differences allows us to see people more fully, not just as data points, averages, or categories, but as unique, complex human beings. And that ultimately is the true goal of psychology. Not to reduce people into numbers, but to understand and value them as individuals. We shall now proceed to examine significance of individual differences. Why it matters so much to recognize that no two people are exactly alike. Let us begin with the classroom. We know that not every student learns in the same way. Some may do well with lectures, while others understand better through visual aids or hands-on activities. When teachers recognize these differences, they can adapt their methods and ensure that every learner gets the support they need. This is the first and most practical benefit of acknowledging individual differences. It allows us to tailor education to individual needs. The second point is about seeing the whole person. Every individual has a unique background, personality, and set of challenges. When psychologists, teachers, or professionals take these into account, they provide support that is not only effective but also meaningful. Now, let us think about diversity. When we welcome different perspectives, ideas, and ways of thinking, we create an environment where everyone feels valued. This sense of belonging encourages creativity and fresh solutions. whether in a classroom, workplace, or community. Individual differences also play a key role in teamwork and performance. If we understand what motivates people and recognize their strengths, we can assign roles that match their abilities. This doesn't just boost productivity, it increases satisfaction and makes teamwork more harmonious. Another important aspect is reducing misunderstandings. Since people see the world differently, conflict often arises from miscommunication. But when we are aware of these differences, it becomes easier to manage disagreements respectfully and to find common ground. Of course, this awareness also strengthens personal relationships in families, friendships, of everyday interactions. Acknowledging differences in thought and emotion helps us communicate better and resolve conflicts more peacefully. This leads to deeper connections and stronger bonds. Finally, recognizing individual differences leads to better solution in applied fields such as education, psychology, or healthcare. A mental health program or a learning app designed with diverse needs in mind will always be more effective than a one size fits all approach. Building on this foundation, we now shift our focus towards how individual differences actually originate. Let us begin right at the start of life. In the earliest stage, when a baby is first conceived, all human embryos look almost identical. But as development continues, even before birth, differences begin to appear. Some newborns are naturally more active, some cry more often, while others have a strong appetite. As we grow older, these differences become even clearer, to the point where it is impossible to place people into neat and uniform categories. So, the big question is, where do these differences come from? Broadly, there are three main sources: heredity, environment, and the self. First, let us talk about the heredity, the genetic contribution. Each of us inherits a unique set of genes from our parents. These genes, carried in our chromosome, determine many of our physical characteristics: eye color, height, body structure, and even certain tendencies in personality and behavior. Although all human beings share the same basic biological design, the specific genetic combination is different for every individual. That's why even siblings who share the same parents can look and behave so differently. Each one inherits a different genetic mix. Even twins provide a fascinating example. Fraternal twins who come from two separate eggs are as different genetically as any brothers or sisters. Identical twins, on the other hand, come from the same fertilized egg, so they share the same genetic makeup. This often explains why they look so alike and may display similar habits. Yet, even identical twins are not completely identical. Over time, environmental factors and personal experiences shape them in unique ways. The second source is environment, the world around us. Right from the time a baby is in the womb, the environment starts to play a role. A mother's health, nutrition, and stress levels can influence the child's early development. After birth, the environment continues to shape the individual through family life, education, friendship, culture, and social expectations. What's fascinating is that even children raised in the same household do not experience the same environment in exactly the same way. One child may receive more encouragement, while another may face different expectations. This explains why siblings raised side by side still turn out to be very different people. A famous saying captures this beautifully: the same fire that melts butter can harden an egg. In other words, individuals react differently to the same situation depending on their inner makeup. The third source is the self, a person's inner world. Every individual develops a unique self shaped by their own emotions, perceptions, and personality. Even with the same genes and the same family environment, two siblings may interpret life differently. One might grow up shy and reserved, while the other becomes outgoing and confident. These differences cannot be explained only by heredity or by environment. They come from how each person internally processes, experiences, and relates to the world. Nature versus nurture. In simple terms, it asks us, are we the way we are because of our genetic makeup or because of our environment and life experiences? Let us begin with a question. Have you ever noticed how one person bounces back quickly from challenges while another gets discouraged easily? Or how siblings raised in the very same family can turn out completely different, one highly focused and ambitious, the other more laxed or struggling academically. These are the kinds of differences that bring us to the heart of this debate. Now, what do we mean by nature? Nature refers to everything we inherit biologically from our parents. It includes traits like eye color, height, body structure, and in many cases, natural talents or tendencies. For example, children of tall or athletic parents are more likely to inherit those features. Many psychologists also suggest that aspects of personality, such as energy levels or emotional sensitivity, can have a genetic foundation. On the other hand, we have nurture. Nurture is about the influences we experience after birth, our family, friendship, education, culture, and emotional support. For instance, a child who grows up in a warm and encouraging home is more likely to develop confidence than a child raised in a highly critical environment. In this sense, nurture is about how life shapes us. Historically, psychologists took sides in this debate. Those who emphasized nature, often called nativists, believed that heredity is the most powerful factor. Those who emphasized nurture, the environmentalists, argue that our experiences write the story of who we become. In fact, the philosopher John Locke described the human mind at birth as a blank slate, suggesting that everything is written by experience. But today, most experts no longer frame it as nature versus nurture. Instead, the emphasis is on how the two work together. Let me give you an example. Take height. Genes set the potential for how tall someone can grow. But whether the potential is reached depends heavily on nutrition and health during childhood. So, heredity and environment interact. The same holds true for mental health. A person may inherit a genetic risk for anxiety or depression, but whether they actually develop the condition depends on environmental influences such as stress, trauma, or emotional support. Even siblings highlight the complexity of this interaction. Although they grow up under the same roof, they inherit different genetic combinations. And beyond that, they interpret their experiences differently. This is why two children raised in the same family can develop such different personalities, abilities, and outlooks on life. The debate is not about choosing one over the other. It is not nature versus nurture, but nature working with nurture. Together, they shape us into the unique individuals we are. Let us now shift gear and look at the measurement of individual differences. Let me start by clarifying something. Measuring individual differences does not mean putting people into rigid boxes or fixed labels. Instead, it's about appreciating the diversity of the human mind and making sure that every individual receives the right kind of support to grow, learn, and succeed. Psychologists study the individual differences not only to build theory but also to apply this knowledge in real life. Measurement helps us understand the complexities of human behavior and guides decisions in education, clinical practice, and even workplaces. One of the main tools we use are standardized psychological tests. These tests give us valuable insights into areas such as intelligence, personality, and cognitive abilities. For example, in schools, they help teachers understand students' needs. In clinical settings, they guide treatment plans, and in organizations, they assist in matching people to suitable roles. But here is the key point. These tools must always be used carefully and responsibly. They have their limitations, and when misused, they can create unfairness or ethical concerns. That's why psychologists emphasize using them with respect for individual differences, so the goal always remains to promote well being and inclusivity. For these tests to be effective, they need to be valid, which means accurate, and reliable, which means consistent. However, research has shown that some widely used memory tests have weaknesses. For instance, tests like verbal paired associates or word list from the Wechsler memory scales, the Ray auditory verbal learning test, or the California verbal learning test sometimes face a problem called the ceiling effect. That means the tasks are too easy for many individuals, and as a result, the test fails to capture the full range of differences. So, why do we actually measure individual differences? Let us highlight the main reasons. First, to understand people better, to gain deeper insights into human strengths and challenges. Second, to support learning and education so teaching methods can be adjusted to different student needs. Third, to assist in therapy by identifying psychological difficulties and planning effective treatment. Fourth, to promote fairness and equity, ensuring that opportunities and support are accessible for all. And finally, to make smarter workplace choices by matching individuals to roles that fit their skills and motivations. The measurement of individual differences is a cornerstone of psychology. When applied responsibly, these assessments become powerful tools that not only deepen our understanding of human behavior but also enhance education, therapy, workplace success, and above all, help us build a fairer and more inclusive society. So, coming to the conclusion of our lecture, let us remind ourselves of one central truth: no two individuals are ever exactly alike. Each person carries a unique blend of abilities, personality traits, emotions, motivations, and behaviors. These differences are not the result of just one factor, but rather a rich interplay of genetics, environment, culture, and social influences. Understanding these differences is not simply a matter of academic interest, it has very practical value. Whether in education, therapy, workplaces, or even in our everyday relationships, recognizing individuality allows us to design strategies that truly fit people's needs. And most importantly, when we value and respect these variations, we create a society that is not only more inclusive but also more effective in helping every individual grow, thrive, and maintain well being. That, in essence, is the real strength of psychology, the ability to see and support the uniqueness of every human being. Thank you all for your attention and engagement. Your curiosity is what keeps the spirit of learning alive. I truly hope the discussion has deepened your understanding of individual differences, how they shape our learning, behavior, and interactions. We have seen that every individual carries a unique blend of heredity, environment, and self, and that measuring these differences through reliable tools is not about labeling people but about recognizing strengths, identifying needs, and providing the right support. Recognizing these differences is essential for effective teaching because it allows educators to design inclusive strategies, provide personalized support, and encourage every learner to reach their potential. In today's diverse classrooms, where students come from varied cultural, social, and emotional backgrounds, understanding individual differences ensures equity, reduces frustration, and promotes confidence. By respecting diversity, we create classrooms that are not only places of knowledge but also spaces of growth, empathy, and lifelong learning. Looking forward to see how you apply these ideas in your own journey. Thank you. Have a good day.